With the recent change in CEO at Qantas being sped up 2 months early, it seems that Qantas has recognised that new leadership has needed to be installed sooner rather than later. How does the airline restore its trust after years and years of scandals damaging the reputation of Australia's national airline?
Barry O'Farrell.
Well, Patricia, three thoughts strike me. Is why did it take Joe Aston and the Financial Review editors to force action on this matter? Secondly, the ACCC came in, but I have to say they came in late. And thirdly, what the hell was the board of Qantas doing? We know that in the world in which we live, governance is increasingly important at a corporate level. I'm not in favour of governments interfering with businesses. That's why we have the ACCC and other bodies. But we also look to chairs and directors on boards to keep watch on management. And we went through a Royal Commission around the banking service, which highlighted issues. And anyone who's a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors is forever being encouraged to undertake further study, further reading, and further use of virtuals to look at the challenges that we face today. So, the board clearly was missing in action.
So should Goyder go as well, the chairman?
Look, I'm not going to go into personalities because I don't know the details, but the point is they clearly, given what we've seen and the reputational damage and the share damage to Qantas, has done damage. ACCC was late to get going, but they now have. But, ultimately, if it hadn't been for Joe Aston and the Fin Review continuing to push on this issue, would we be having this discussion?
OK, should Alan Joyce get his $24 million golden handshake?
Depends what his contract is. If there is a legally binding contract, there's not much you can do about it. But, it doesn't pass the pub test in any pub I've been into in my career.
If you were in charge of Qantas, what would you do?
Patricia, you keep putting me in charge of modern things.
That's very funny.
Yeah, 24 million. The 24 million can go to the housing maybe, or like rents or something. I think it's far better placed elsewhere than Alan Joyce's pocket.
I just want to come back, Tuan. Your actual question was, how can Qantas rebuild its reputation? And I guess my immediate reaction to your question is they need to deliver what we want them to deliver, which is a reliable air service at a reasonable price. And we don't want them selling us tickets on flights that have already been cancelled. And if they've got that money of ours, in all honesty, I'd like to see that money returned to consumers, because we saw them post a profit of nearly $2.5 billion. But of that, nearly 600 million was credits from people like us who didn't get to take those flights that we booked along the way. So I actually think if you bring it right back to a brand exercise, it's that you have to walk the talk. And we need them to provide an authentic service that we know we can all rely on.
I just want to see a show of hands, if I can. Who's kind of grumpy or even red hot with rage at Qantas at the moment? Oh, OK, well, that's subtle. It would be an overwhelming number of hands. Obviously, it is a genuine issue. Murray, you've been under intense pressure, your government, over the last couple of weeks for your cosy relationship with Qantas. Did you take too long to start to distance yourself from Qantas?
Well, it's interesting. I know we've been accused of that, but if people look back over the last few years, it's been the Labor Party who's been critical of Qantas on many occasions.
But in the last couple of weeks?
Well, what we've said is that the decision around Qatar was based on the national interest. It wasn't about any one factor.
But we don't know what the national interest is.
But there's all sorts of accusations.
What's the national interest? Tell me.
It's about putting Australia first. That's what the national interest is.
How does that decision put us first?
But Catherine King has said, as the minister, that there were a number of factors that went to that decision. There's not one factor in particular. But I think the issue for Qantas in terms of restoring their reputation is that they've got to also recognise that putting customers and their workers first is an important priority for a big corporation, just as putting their shareholders first. And I think, if I can give one example, the way Qantas has treated its workers over the last few years by outsourcing so much of its functions, by cutting wages, by bringing in labour hire to undercut their wages, that has had a direct impact on customers' experience. That's one of the reasons why so many flights get cancelled, while baggage gets lost.
Should they pay back JobKeeper? Would you like them to?
I think once they can get the money together, they should be thinking about doing that. Because it was a big investment from taxpayers, and taxpayers aren't seeing that being repaid in terms of the services. But this point about the way they've treated their workers, That is exactly the debate we're having at the moment about labour hire. And Qantas is one of the companies who's upset with what the government is trying to do by closing those loopholes.
So if the new CEO wants to show that she's, you know, trying to repair that relationship, is paying back JobKeeper one way to do that?
I think it probably is.
I needed to go back just on when we talk about Qatar Airways. I'm really troubled by talking about the national interest and saying it's a number of factors. And to be honest, I think it's exactly what's wrong with politics, that politicians play this duck and weave game, and by saying a number of factors but not actually saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that doesn't let the public be able to look into that, to scrutinise it and to really understand what's going on. And any good minister, quite frankly, should be able to put their job on the line every single time to defend the decisions that they have made. And that is something that all politicians owe to us, the public, to understand what's going on and why that decision was made. So I'm still here scratching my head saying, what's the national interest? So I think, you know, we need more transparency around this.
Kevin?
Okay.
Who did you fly with?
Very happy to make a comment on this, but look, the minister has been jumping around with about 8 or 9 different answers, and national interest is one that's flowed through. But the way I read that, it's, you know, a well-known fact. If we had more flights into this country from Qatar, you know, that would put downward pressure on airline prices, and that would mean there'd be more planes for exporters as well, because in the bellies of those planes we have frozen beef and things that are flying out of the country in passenger planes. So if it's in the national interest not to lower airline prices for Australians or to have more access for exporters to get out of the country, I think that's a very strange decision.
OK, and are you flying Qantas at the moment?
I'm trying not to.
Why not?
Well, I think it's just a statement for me. I think that, you know, the allegation that the ACCC has made about the fact that they were letting people book on flights they knew that were going to be cancelled, that's pretty ordinary stuff. And I mean, I've spoken to some of the airports as well, and, you know, they allege that Qantas sort of gamed the system a bit in the sense that they cancel flights regularly, but keep it above what the 80% rule is, so they don't lose the slots, but they know they're going to cancel a lot of flights.
And speaking of flights, I mean, so I'm studying in the UK right now. It cost me $4,000 return to come here and to go back. So we're thinking about business, or we're thinking about people who are based overseas. You know, if we don't drive those prices down, that's going to become extremely difficult
and
to
a
get
show of
here.
hands on the panel who's got a Chairman's Lounge membership.
Yeah. But I've got to say,
Hands down.
a free drink and some stale peanuts is not going to stop me from calling them out when the behaviour is wrong.
Oh,
So
Kylie,
I don't know,
there's good stuff there. It's better than stale peanuts.
Yeah, that's right.